Okay, so let's keep this solution as it is. And let me copy this solution over here. By the way, let me add the markdown that says nested conditions. Okay, cool. So I'm going to paste this code over here as it is, right? So that we don't change the original code. Cool. So now the problem is we have to make sure if the input is invalid, then the remarks should not be given. Instead of giving the remarks, it should say the input is invalid, right? Okay. So how do we mark an input as invalid? First of all, we will say if marks are greater than 100, okay, then it should say print invalid entry. Okay, if marks are greater than 100, then it is invalid entry. Okay, elif, there is another condition. If marks are less than 0, right? If they're in negative, if the entry is in negative, then we will again say invalid entry. Okay, ENTRY. Yeah, correct. Now, if either of these are the cases, if marks are greater than 100, let's say if marks are 150, then 150 is greater than 100. Yeah, it will say invalid entry. Otherwise, it will check if the entry is less than 0. So let's say if the entry was negative 20. So yeah, if this is true, then this will be printed. But if the entry is, let's say, if the entry is 80, okay, let's say 85, then 85 is greater than 100? No. So it is ignored, right? Now, if 85 is less than 0, no, this is false. So this is also ignored. Then what will I do is, please watch very carefully and listen very carefully. I'll say else. Okay. Here, print. I'm printing temporarily over here. Valid, right? So if the code has reached to this part, then we are in a valid zone. These both were invalid zones. But if they both are false, then we are in valid zone. And if we are in valid zone, then we should execute this code, right? So what I am going to do is, I am going to cut this code and I'm going to paste this code over here. Now, since I want to make this whole code as a body of this else condition, then this code should be indented. Why? Because the body is always indented to else condition. So I'll select the whole code, I'll hit tab button, the whole code will be indented. Okay? Don't worry, I know it is a bit confusing, so I'll repeat everything. Let's go with the flow. First of all, let's add an entry of negative 20. It should say invalid, okay? So hitting enter, here, hitting enter, it says invalid entry. Why? Because negative 20 is greater than 100? No. So it is ignored. Negative 20 is less than 0? So yes, this is true. So this is actually printed. Since this is printed, so the else part is ignored now. Okay? And this is what we wanted. Running it again. Now we are adding 85. Okay? Now, how it will work? So 85 is greater than 100? No. It is less than 0? No. Okay, fine. If they both are false, then the default case is else. And what is else? Else has a complete another structure in it. Once previously the else was ignored, so the whole structure was ignored. Now the else is going to be executed since above both cases are false. So the body of else, whatever it is, in this case, it is another structure. And remember, this structure is independent of any other structure, right? So now here, it will say, if marks are greater than 80, what are the marks? They're 85. So yeah, marks are greater than 80. So outstanding will be printed. So running it, yeah, it prints outstanding. Great. One more time. This time we're going to enter, let's say 35. Now 35 is greater than 100. No. It is less than 0. No. Otherwise, it will go to the else part, which is the valid part. So here, greater than 80, no. Greater than 60, no. Greater than 40, no. So what is left? Only this else part is left. So it will print out failed. All right. I hope you got my point. Let's do one more case. Let's write one more code and then we will move on. So we are going to solve the even odd problem, right? So if the number is even, we are going to print even. If the number is odd, we are going to print odd. So let's say the number is, let's say 8. Now 8 is even or odd? It is even. Let's say if it is 17, it is odd, right? So the definition of even or odd is if the number is divisible by 2, then it is even. Otherwise, it is odd. Cool. For this, we cannot use the divisible operator, by the way. Why? Because let's go back over here. Okay. So here, if we divide 20 by 6, the answer will be 3, right? This is the result of division. 3 is the result of division, but we are not interested in 3. We are interested in 2. We are interested in remainder, modulus, right? If we divide a number with another number and modulus is not 0, then the particular number is not divisible by the other number. For example, this 20 is not divisible by 6. That is why remainder is not 0. But if here, instead of 20, there would be 60, then instead of 3, we would see 10, right? Why? Because 60 is divisible by 6. So 6 into 10 is 60. So remainder would be 0. So if remainder is 0, then we can say that, yes, this number is divisible by the other number. Same the case with 2. If we divide 17 by 2, then remainder will be 1. Remainder will not be 0. Hence, 17 is not an even number. But if we talk about 4, 4 is divisible by 2. Why? Because remainder is 0. So we will work with the remainders. So if number remainder 2 is equals to 0. Now here in one expression, I am using two operators. I'm using a mathematical operator or arithmetical operator, and I'm using comparison operator as well. How it will work? As we know, execution starts from left to right. So it will first of all evaluate this expression. Number, which is in this case 4. So 4 modulus 2. What is result? Result is 0, right? So it will be replaced by 0. Now 0 is equals to 0. Yes, right? So this is how it will work. So here I'll say if that is the case, then print it is even. Otherwise, there's no other case, right? So otherwise, simply print it is, let's say, odd. Cool. So running it, it says even. Instead of 4, I'll hit 5. It says odd. Why? Because 5 modulus 2 is not 0, right? So this is going to be false. So this condition is false. So the body will be ignored and it will go to the else part. Okay. Now here comes the twist. I will change the use case and I'll say if the number is negative, then you should not print even or odd. Then you should print number is negative. But if the number is positive, then you should print yes, it is even or odd, right? So how can we modify this? We'll say if number is greater than, how about 0? Let's say 0 is also not included in our case. So if number is actually less than or equals to 0, then we will say print negative number, right? Else what? If it is not negative, if this condition is not true, then what? Then we want to print they are either even or odd. So I will select it, hit tab button. So it is in the else part now. Now, if you run this tree in your mind, and let's say we work with -5. So -5, this is true or false? This is true, because -5 is less than 0. Yeah, that is true. So negative number will be printed, and this whole thing will be ignored. Here we go. Cool. But if it is, let's say 15, 15 is less than or equal to 0? No. So it is ignored. Else part, here we have another structure. So 15 modulus 2 is equals to 0. No, 15 modulus 2 is 1, right? So it is not even. It is going to be else part, which is odd. So here we go. It is going to be odd. So this is what we call nested if conditions, where we can add, and by the way, you can add nesting to, you can take nesting to any complexity, any level of complexity. So you can add another if inside another else, inside another else. You can add another if, and so on and so forth. You can create your whole tree. Cool. Okay. So here our nested code is ready. Now this code is good to go. So we are done with nested conditions as well. One more thing. We are left with a few logical operators, or some operators that are also called connectors. So we will talk about connectors, and then we will go to the solution of this assignment with ChatGPT. We are going to modify the solution a little bit more, and then we'll go to the ChatGPT solution.